What I want to talk about today is delivery. Delivery. When there's a lot of different aspects into getting the gospel. Now, I need everybody to understand this, even though some of you have stepped forward and said, I believe that God has called me to preach the gospel, and you have to know that God has called you to do this. You have to know that this is something that God wants you to do. But in reality, let me be real clear. Everybody's been called to preach the gospel. Everybody has been called to share the good news. He didn't say, go ye therefore, some of y'all. He wanted all of us to go forth and preach the gospel. And now, how we deliver it and how we preach it is different. Whether we have a title for it or not is also different. You preach by the way you live, the way you carry yourself. A great poet said, I'd rather see a sermon than to hear one any day. I'd rather for one to walk with me than just to show the way. So how we conduct ourselves is preaching, sharing your testimony, witnessing to a person on the job, helping a person that is in need. This is all about, and your life is about getting the gospel, delivering the gospel to people, delivering it to someone. And everyone must understand the importance of being able to do that. The importance that each of you have to take in order to deliver the gospel. Now, as a minister, we have a special care. If y'all can move that away here. As a minister, we have a special care on becoming better at it than just winging it. We want to perfect that which concerneth us. We want that to get to a point where it is becoming more and more effective. And so one of the most important things you must understand about your message is you also got to deliver it. You can prepare a great sermon and give it a horrible delivery. One of the things I've learned, and I don't cook a lot, but when I do, I realize that presentation matters. You know, how you present it and put it on the table, and when I cook them shrimp and all that stuff, I want it to look right. So the delivery of the sermon is the most dynamic moment of the preaching experience. Let me get that clear. You got to have your time to study. You got to do your research. You got to do that 7 steps that I told you about to prepare a sermon. But the most dynamic moment is when you actually deliver what you've been working on. And in that moment, all sermon preparation is brought to 2 things. Either it's going to be brought to fruition or frustration. Fruition or frustration. And so at the end of the sermon, you either feel good or you feel horrible. And it has very little to do with the subject itself as much as the delivery of that subject. If the sermon is delivered effectively, the preacher is grateful, he forgets the hours of the toil and the preparation. He's just, he has this excitement because he delivered that thing that God gave him. But if the sermon fails, all the labor and study will seem like a heavy, useless burden. I went through all of this for nothing. The gospel is a proclaimed gospel. Thus, a sermon is never a sermon until it is delivered. Until you get it out to somebody, it ain't a sermon yet. It ain't done yet. A minister is never a preacher until he communicates to others. In spite of its importance, delivery is often the most neglected area. So let me say this again. Most people don't even do this what I'm doing right now. Most churches don't do this. They don't take the time to teach you how to deliver that thing you've been cooking. And it's one of the most neglected areas. And most preachers don't take the time. They just get up and wing it. They see how it don't go. Their rationalizations for this are many. For some, they don't know how they sound when they speak. They have no qualified critics to tell them. They are convinced that if a preacher has something to say, it will automatically just happen. A study of speech is too mundane. You know, some of you have taken public speaking courses before. It is impossible to change old habits. Our study of delivery includes a discussion of, and this is what we're going to get into today, your personality. Your personality. And what I saw today was very apropos to what I'm going to talk about. I saw two ministers in training deliver a sermon within their personality. They stayed within themselves. This is, when we heard them, we heard them. We didn't hear an actor. We didn't hear somebody putting on. That was their personality. So I want to speak to that, the minister's personality. The minister's personality is of such vital importance to the delivery of the sermon that you be yourself. When you deliver, when you share, be yourself. It is interesting. People preach all the time. Even they leave here, they tell people about the message of the sermon, and when they do it, they are themselves. For some reason, they get up in that pulpit, thus said the Lord God Jesus. And I want to come to each of you tonight with this profound word of God. And you become an actor, Macbeth or something, Shakespeare. And it's because we're trying to impress people. I'm going to get into that a little bit later. Be yourself is the first law of preaching. You are who you are. Now, that don't mean you can't become a better who you are, but be who you are. Practice delivering a message within yourself, but be who you are. Understand who you are. Learn how to become a better who you are, but be who you are. So you got to be able, you got to be in a good emotional state, and you got to have a good attitude. So you got to be ready, prepared. I tell people all the time. I mean, when I'm going to preach, man, I go all out. I want to make sure I have my good underwear on. I take out the new undershirts. I'm serious. I got a set of regular undershirts, and then I got my new stack right over there. So those are ones. So when I'm preaching, I take out the good stuff. Oh, y'all aren't working with me. I want to feel right. I want my stuff right. You just come any old kind of way, and the churches are going to that. But no, I want to be able. I want to be at my best. I want to be in a good emotional state. And I want to have a good attitude. And these are the types of things that help me to have a good attitude. My shoes are right. My shoes look good. My socks are right. Everything is good about it. The able preacher must be spiritually, here's a fourth one I'd add to that, spiritually prepared. Spiritually prepared. So you are physically able, you're in a good emotional state, you have a good attitude, and fourthly, you've been prepared spiritually. So let's talk about the personality by breaking it down. The first thing let's talk about is your emotions. Emotions. In at least one area of personality, the minister who is to minister is in delivery for good or ill. Let me read that again. In at least one area of personality, the minister is who the minister is in delivery for good or evil. So you are who you are. I think I said that earlier. The minister's emotions will be seen in the preaching of a sermon. What's going on emotionally with you, within you, will come out of you in your delivery. Delivery has its first resonance, and therefore it is very important that you're spiritually mature, because if you are being driven by your emotions, it will come out in your sermon. And the Bible says, be angry, but sin not. What that means is don't allow your emotions to dictate your behavior. And if you're in an emotionally bad state, you're not spiritually mature because you've been driven by your emotions rather than God's Holy Spirit. and your emotions are very important when it comes to delivering and preaching. Who the speaker is and how the speaker feels as a Christian will be seen and heard through the eyes, the face, the voice, the gestures, the posture, the attitude towards the congregation. And if there is a conflict between the two, it will come out. It will become evident. Sometimes preachers get up and they're mad at the audience. They're mad at the church folk. Sometimes they preach to the choir, but they're mad at the ones that ain't showed up. And it comes out. They're not spiritually mature. They're being driven by their emotions. They're angry. They're upset. They're frustrated. They're disappointed. And as a preacher, but let me understand me. You will be disappointed. You will get angry. God didn't tell you not to have those emotions, but when they come out, you're being spiritually immature. So now you got to learn how to grow spiritually so that you're not being driven by your emotions that you truly feel. And so let's talk about, let's break this down. Ministers' emotions. Everybody say emotional background. Emotional background. Your emotional background. The minister's total experience as a person is reflected in the delivery of a sermon. The deepest spiritual feelings, basic emotions, and attitudes persistently appear in sermon delivery. This emotional principle is what they call pathos. Pathos. It's where your emotions are engaged and involved. Such emotional factors such as your personality adjustment, how you feel, whether you feel accepted, your acceptance, a lifelong struggle with inferiority complexes, all of these things play in your delivery. A desire to be accepted. Some people, because of this emotional baggage, this emotional background, they preach in order to be accepted. Therefore, their sermons are being preached to try to get people to accept them or like them or to impress them. And all of that comes from an emotional baggage of a desire for people to like you. This comes from your emotional background. A desire to be accepted can rob a minister of a most vital asset, and that is the ability to be yourself. When you're trying to be accepted, then you may feel like being myself won't get me accepted. So now I got to be what I think y'all want me to be. Are y'all hearing me? And so a lot of people preach to get approval. Y'all ain't working with me. They preach for people to like them, to like it. Boy, you sure preached. Which is a problem because now you're not being yourself. You're trying to be what you think people want you to be. Also involved in this pathos is the speaker's Christian experience, especially the motivation for the security in the ministry. If one's personal experience with God is not adequate and growing, it will show up in their sermon. It will show up in their content. It will show up in their delivery. If you are not spending time with God himself, if you don't pray, if you don't fast, if you don't study the word of God, that lack of spiritual growth and development will show up in your sermons. You will preach shallow sermons. You will preach not from a place of experience. Okay, when you preach, it should be something that you are dealing with, you are going through. You're not just reading a speech that somebody prepared. You're speaking from experience, and we preach the gospel. We preach Jesus Christ. And if you don't have an experience with Jesus Christ, then you won't be effective in preaching about Jesus Christ. Those subjects that you minister on should be directly reflected in you. Should be a part of you. Somebody say amen. A dislike of people may be seen. Some people preach and they don't like people. So you know what comes out? They come out harsh. Y'all, I need to be doing this. They want to punish people. I already don't like y'all anyway. So what comes out of their delivery and their sermon, their message, is this punishment, this attitude, offensive, overly abusive in their delivery. A preacher can be most effective in delivery when speaking from a sense of divine purpose and conviction. You believe that. You feel like you have a purpose. You feel like God has called you to be a blessing or a help to someone. As a person who has mastered, who has matured emotionally, and who is concerned about those who are listening to them. So I may have some emotional baggage or issues, but I'm not worried about my emotions right now. I'm more concerned about you. I have gotten to a level where I'm spiritually mature and I'm delivering something that I believe is going to be a blessing to you. This here is something that we must all be a part of. You raise your hand, sir? Go ahead. Well, I think you're on the word when you use the word too much, when it becomes too much. A sermon shouldn't be a testimony. A testimony should be an illustration of a sermon. A testimony should back up the sermon. But if all I'm doing is preaching about my testimony, then I'm not preaching, I'm giving a testimony. Nothing wrong with a testimony, except for this is not testimony service. Yeah, I've seen that, and it does happen from time to time. But who gave their testimony today? Shayna did a perfect illustration. It was a last segment of her summer, and she shared her testimony, and it was perfect. She didn't preach about her life experiences. Some people go from beginning to end, tell us, and then this happened, and then when that happened, and then this happened, and then that. So now you're giving us a testimony and not a sermon. So it is very important that we speak, even though we're speaking from experience and knowledge, we should preach the gospel based upon the points that I've given you. You've done your study, your 7 steps, and you're giving me a 5-point message. Yes.
Back to the topic of pathos and having an emotional experience, emotional message coming out. Have you ever experienced that? And if so, how do you take out of that when you're in a situation where your emotions are trying to overtake the message?
Well, one of the things I believe is obviously your preparation. I don't hide my emotions. I just need to be mature about them. And emotions are starting to take over. Exactly what do you mean by your emotions are starting to take over?
I'll just try to give an example. In my old church growing up, we used to say, don't bring anything to the pastor before he's delivering the word, because we don't want to take him out of his preparation for the message. And so he could, someone could come in and tell him about their divorce, and now he's thinking about their divorce as opposed to actually delivering the word.
Yeah, and sometimes some things are unavoidable. So you can't avoid everything. I don't disagree with that sentiment. Don't come and try to lay something on the pastor. And actually, I pretty much shut my door. I don't let people come in and say, Pastor, I got to talk to you. I say, will you talk to me after service? But even if that did happen, we have to be in a state, and that's what this is about, where you're spiritually mature enough that you're not going to allow, and I do a lot of preaching about our relations with people. And right now, and the thing that I did for 2016, you got to break through people. You can't let people have such a hold on you that they dictate your emotional state and how you act and how you behave and how you react. And so I believe a pretty mature preacher, even if something is death just before he has to be able to compartmentalize that, put that to a side, and go ahead and preach a sermon, if y'all with me. Now, the knowledge is important. Don't misunderstand me, because part of, and what I gave you all in the previous segment of teaching, part of is just understanding this. And so sometimes some of those things are important for a preacher to know because they are needs. But he then needs to go prepare a sermon to meet that need, not to be mad or angry or upset with the church when it comes out. Are y'all hearing me? Now, to change this emotional factor in delivery, the minister must learn to face and accept himself as a person. Every minister needs a counseling experience. What I'm saying there is everybody has to have somebody they can go to. You have to have somebody that you can talk with offline, in private, where you can, even what we're doing here today is a part of that experience. What I'm able to do is listen to you all and give you some feedback. And if I had to go offline and give you even more in-depth feedback as your pastor, I can do that. Each one of you should have other people that you can talk to, that you feel comfortable around so that you can deal with this. A trusted and capable critic is very important to a preacher. Somebody who can tell you that, no, that don't smell good. Everybody else gonna tell you it smell good. Everybody else gonna tell you, boy, you sure preached. Boy, you sure did this. Well, you need somebody who can tell you, well, it seems like you got a little bit. And I've run into problems with that with some of y'all in the past. I'm preaching. When I've been critical, mother, folks get on. And I'm trying to help them. Are y'all with me? And so they have to be able to trust their pastor. Trust that what I'm giving you and what I'm telling you is for your benefit. That's a confidant. So this is what we talk about, your emotional background. Secondly, let's talk about your emotional identification. Your emotional identification. The minister identifies emotionally with the immediate preaching situation. The factor involved here is your poise, your emotional stability in delivering the sermon, remaining calm, cool, and collected. Poise is often disturbed by what we call fear. And so every preacher should have a little nervousness, but it should not become so such a strain on you that you can't be effective in your delivery. You have to remain poised. An ego concern, the size and attitude of the congregation. Some people get upset if the crowd ain't big. And you got to learn how to be able to preach. I'm going to talk about today about season, in season and out of season, but I ain't going to go there right now. But my point is, it doesn't matter the size of the audience or the crowd, but some people, their ego will bother them with that. The presence of those in the congregation who demand a great deal of the preacher. And similar circumstances can affect the poise. Some of us grew up in churches where people would say, well, you ain't preached because you didn't holler, you didn't do this. So they have certain expectations of what they think a preacher is. And what I'm trying to show you today is, no, a preacher is who you are. You just got to be the best who you are. And not try to preach to meet the expectations of your audience. You got to help your audience. You got to be yourself. Emotional identification. Nervousness is it should be a part, but it should not gravitate to fear where you can't be effective. Extreme cases of fear can result in forgetting your sermon, your inability to talk, you stumble. So that's where your practice comes in. Now, it's okay to be nervous, but what that should do is cause you to get prepared, cause you to be prepared. It is an error to believe that all fear should be removed from a speaker. The minister who comes to the pulpit without nervous tension is unlikely to preach well. Tension is necessary to be an effective public speaker. It makes you, it forces you to become ready, to prepare yourself, to have a zest for that delivery. But it must be controlled. And there are different ways to improve your poise. For one thing, the minister should be thoroughly prepared. And I just said that again. Always be ready, be prepared. I've been sharing with you all what I want you to do. I want you to prepare a sermon. I wanted to follow these points. I'm teaching you these points. So no one should come up here unprepared. That will help you to get over your nervousness and your poise. Preachers should have a deep concern for the congregation. If a preacher is more vitally concerned with the spiritual needs of the congregation than with their approval, the preacher can better deal with fear. See, I'm afraid if I think y'all may not like my sermon, and that fear will bother me. But if I'm more concerned with your spiritual needs, then it doesn't matter whether you like the sermon or not. I can be myself. And the most important thing that will give you poise in delivery is reliance on God. So let me say this. So let me give you this juxtaposition. One, you should prepare a sermon as if it's all on you and deliver it as if it's all on God. When I was a minister of music, that's what I said. I said, now we're going to sing and we're going to rehearse and we're going to get our parts. We're going to make sure everything is right. But on Sunday, God's going to do the work. But you got to be ready. You got to prepare yourself. I mean, if you don't prepare yourself and then just want God to move. All the parts are wrong, everybody off key, and then you just want the Holy Ghost to move. You didn't forget the words. You're talking about, thank you, Jesus. You know you didn't forget the words because you ain't prepared. Oh, God, God. And you're trying to get deep on people. No, you're not prepared. If you are prepared, you know your sermon inside out. You got your notes. You studied. You know you're ready. Now, don't go up there arrogant. You're just ready and prepared. But you're totally reliant upon God at that moment of delivery. Are y'all getting this? Another thing that you can do when you first get up, let me give you a couple of keys. Y'all get these real quick. The minister should relax, stay seated while seated, clear your throat, talk at a normal level. Now, I know I get excited and start hollering and all of that, but that's different. I'm talking about when you're just delivering your sermon. The preacher should look at the congregation, develop eye contact with them, even before you get up. When y'all do your initial sermon, you sit there, look at people. Get eye contact. Develop a familiarity with the people you're about to talk to. Build audience rapport that will lessen problems with delivering that sermon. Smile at folks. Let them smile back at you. Let them tell you can do it. The speaker should breathe deeply when approaching the pulpit, begin to speak, have appropriate body movement, especially gestures during the sermon will afford a legitimate outlet. And Shane did a really good job with that today. Poise may also be affected by the attitude towards specific situations. The key to poise are personal identification with the subject and the audience, and physical and spiritual fitness and preparation. Let me give you this last point. Emotionally, the minister, for better or worse, is a person. The delivery will reflect that personality. The minister should always be natural. Through this, though this is not often the case, we want to be ourselves. We want to be natural. So those of you that are studying, I want you to get that book, read that entire chapter. We're going to continue with this, looking at the minister's creative self, because each one of us have a creative bone. We got to look at our voice, our speech, our tonation, our pitch. All of these types of things are what we're going to be discussing this month in our minister's training class. So I want to thank you all for coming. Y'all give God a great big hand today.